Hi, Session 4, Quality Management. In this session, we will try to understand what quality is, whether quality is adequately defined in organizations, how quality is measured, how it is controlled, and whether quality management always leads to organizational improvements. The market always requires consistent quality of product and services. And because the market requires this, operations need to supply consistent quality of products and services. Quality will always influence revenue and cost. How does it influence revenue? It influences revenue by ensuring an enhanced service and product is sold to the customer, thereby increasing its brand value. With that, it increases sales volume and hence revenue, which should increase profits. The influence of quality on cost is also very important to understand. Quality products reduces cost of rectifying errors. It reduces cost of compensating customers for defects. It reduces cost of detecting errors. Thereby it increases productivity. And when you increase productivity, it reduces operations costs. Now, how do you define quality? A product would have expectations in the eyes of the customer. If the expectations for the product or service in the eyes of the customer is equal to its perceptions, then the product or service is called a quality product. Likewise, if the expectations are greater than the perception of the product or service, the perceived quality is considered poor. Likewise, if your expectations are generally lesser or your perceptions are greater than the expectations, then the perceived quality is considered good. Therefore, it is very important to understand this perception-expectation gap. Organizations need to have knowledge regarding how to identify this gap and introduce resolutions to bridge this gap. Generally, there are 4 gaps in the quality model. Gap 1 is the gap between the customer's own specification of quality and the organization's specification of quality. Gap 2 is between the organization's specification of quality and management's concept of the product or service. Gap 3 is between the organization's specification of quality and the actual product or service. And the final gap, the 4th gap, is the gap between the actual product or service or the characteristics of the actual product or service and the image of product or service that is perceived by the customer. It is very important that organizations understand the difference between the traditional cost of quality model and a more modern view of the cost model. In the traditional cost model, there's always this optimum amount of quality effort that was set, that was identified, and beyond that, organizations did not bother too much to identify or improve the quality effort. In the more modern version of the cost model, there is no optimum amount of quality effort considered. Optimum amount of quality effort is continuous. The more effort that you put on manufacturing a quality product, the better it would be in a dynamic business environment where we find more and more demanding customers. So what is the definition of quality? Quality is defined as consistent conformance to customer expectations or requirements. So it's very important for organizations to understand this. To manage quality, organizations need to really understand the customer requirements, the customer's perception, customer's expectation. Organizations also incur costs. Philip Crosby came up with this cost formula, which basically said there are two components of quality costs. One is the cost of conformance. The second is the cost of non-conformance. Cost of quality has been grouped into 4 areas. The first category is external failure costs. These are costs that are incurred when a product reaches the customer and the customer starts using it. He realizes that it does not conform to his expectations and he returns that product. So the cost incurred by an organization for reprocessing or reworking this product or scrapping it totally is called external failure costs. Internal failure costs occur when an organization detects a product or service to be not conforming to the requirements, the specifications of the customer before it leaves the organization's premises. And there too, the organization will have to either rework, reprocess, or scrap the product or service altogether. The third category is appraisal cost. These are costs incurred by the organization for checking whether a product or service conforms to the quality at multiple stages in its manufacturing process or the service process. The more steps that the organization has for checking the quality spec of a product or service, the more costs the organization would incur in terms of manning, in terms of equipment, in terms of time, in terms of delay, and so forth. The fourth one is prevention cost. Prevention costs are costs incurred by the organization to prevent anomalies, defects occurring in the manufacturing process or in the service process. More and more organizations are moving towards investing in equipment, in manning, in processes to prevent defects, prevent anomalies happening in the process that would create a gap between the product and service characteristics and the requirements and the specifications of the customer. Therefore, cost of conformance would be equal largely to prevention cost plus a bit of appraisal cost. And cost of non-conformance is generally considered external failure cost and internal failure costs. So organizations should strive to have prevention costs and appraisal costs as costs of quality, and to have zero in internal failures and external failure costs. So the ideal scenario of an organization would be to incur prevention costs and appraisal costs as costs of quality, and to have zero internal and external failure costs. Therefore, quality can mean the difference between excellence and disaster. It's so important for organizations to understand this and to focus more on managing quality effectively. Total quality management is generally a holistic approach to long-term success that views continuous improvement in all aspects of an organization as a process and not as a short-term goal. Quality becomes strategic to an organization when TQM is initiated. TQM aims to radically transform the organization through progressive changes in attitudes, practices, structures, and systems. So total quality management transcends the product quality approach. It is supposed to involve everyone in the organization and encompasses its every function: administration, communications, distribution, manufacturing, marketing, planning, training, etc. It would be good if you can read this question and discuss this. It will be a good exercise for you to look at an organization of your choice and discuss the strategies that are in place to manage quality in that organization. You can question whether an organization follows TQM principles, and if you find it does not, then probably you can present some recommendations. Okay. Right, so let's get to the three experts on quality management: Philip Crosby, Deming, and Joseph Juran. These are the three quality gurus that influence organization to look at quality from a completely novel perspective. Philip Crosby talked about conformance to requirements, which we just discussed in one of the slides before. His theory was that the cost of quality should be equal to price of conformance and price of non-conformance. And price of non-conformance should be driven down to zero. W. Edwards Deming said, quality of any product or service can only be defined by the customer. So he was reiterating the fact that quality is all about meeting customer expectations, and any product or service should have consistent conformance to customer requirements. He said products should have predictable degree of uniformity resulting from reduced variability. So he was talking about investing in the process mechanism that will reduce variability in the manufacturing of products and services. Joseph Juran talked about fitness for use, a balance between features of products and services, that these being free from deficiencies. So the three experts on quality management said almost the same thing about quality, but from different perspectives. Philip Crosby talked about doing anything right the first time. He talked about having a zero defects and zero defect day in organizations to ensure people focused, eradicating gaps between the product specifications and what is actually being produced. He talked about the prevention process, where he said organizations should focus more on investing in preventing defects. He introduced the quality vaccine and the 6 C's. Deming talked about profound knowledge, the plan, do, check, act cycle, prevention by process improvement, the chain reaction for quality improvement, common cause and special cause variation, and the 14 points and the deadful and dreadful diseases. Joseph Juran talked about the spiral of progress in quality, the breakthrough sequence, the project approach, the Juran Trilogy, and the principle of the vital few and tribal many, the 80-20 rule. This slide elaborates a little bit more on what Philip Crosby said. So you can clearly see what the 4 absolutes of quality is, what the prevention process is, what the quality vaccine is, and the 6 C's, which is comprehension, commitment, competence, communication, correction, and continuance. It's more of a continuous process or continuous improvement process that needs to be followed for organizations to ensure that they live and breathe quality. Crosby also came up with the 14 steps, which is management commitment. He said quality should be driven from the top and it should be strategic in nature. He talked about quality improvement teams. He talked about measuring quality. He talked about the costs of quality, which we've already discussed. Quality awareness, corrective action, zero defects planning, educating the employees on quality management, ensuring that organizations have a zero defects day so that employees can focus on eradicating defects, goal setting, error cause removal, recognition for people who are quality conscious. He said the manufacturing organizations should have quality circles where you empower the operators to continuously improve the way that they do things. And he said, go ahead and do it over again and again. W. Edwards Deming came up with the system of profound knowledge, the plan, do, check, act cycle, prevention by process improvement, chain reaction for quality improvement, common cause and special cause variation, 14 points, the deadly and the dreadful diseases. The prevention by process improvement is very popular in organizations where they have brainstorming sessions to identify the root cause of a problem. They use brainstorming sessions and develop a fishbone diagram to find the 20% of the issues that contribute towards 80% of the problem. These are Deming's 14 points, self-explanatory, and Deming's deadly and dreadful diseases. Juran came up with the spiral of progress in quality, the breakthrough sequence, the project by project approach, the Juran Trilogy, and the principle of the vital few and trivial many. This is actually the 80-20 rule, or the Pareto analysis, as is commonly known. So these slides just build on what others have said. He said, if you really want to manage quality, you should not think of radical change. You should start by fixing small problems. Then you look at the root causes. Then you do incremental change. And then finally move to best in class. And that's where you do radical change. Juran's quality trilogy is about quality planning, quality control, and quality improvement. Quality planning is to design a process that will be able to meet established goals under operating conditions. Quality control is to operate and, when necessary, correct the process so that it performs with optimal effectiveness. And quality improvement is to devise ways to take the process to unprecedented levels of performance. This is an example of the 80-20 rule. Try and fathom the 20% of the issues that contribute towards 80% of the problem. There were so many other writers who came up with different perspectives of quality management. But if you compare and contrast, all what they have said either complements what Philip Crosby, Deming, and Juran had said, or qualifies what they have already said. So these you can just take a look and assimilate what basically they have said. This is a table that sort of compares and contrasts the variables that will contribute towards quality improvement. Finally, the theoretical framework for quality management. It revolves around proper leadership, quality assurance. You have to empower employees and you have to develop the philosophy of quality. And quality becomes very strategic to an organization, and it should be driven from the top. So all these philosophies have been implemented over the years in many organizations in different countries. They go beyond the economic concerns of an organization and address the organization's employees as well. They give high priority to pride in workmanship, education, the work environment, as well as to team building, teamwork, cooperation, and participation. All things essential to cultural change. And change is the only thing that is permanent in the business environment. You can have a discussion on Michael O'Reilly's statements. The CEO of Ryanair, who said, "Our customer service is the most well defined in the world. We guarantee to give you the lowest airfare. You get a safe flight. You get a normally on time flight. That's the package. We don't and won't give you anything more. Are we going to say sorry for our lack of customer service? Absolutely not. If a plane is cancelled, will we put you up in a hotel overnight? Absolutely not. If a plane is delayed, will we give you a voucher for a restaurant? Absolutely not." This seems to be quite a ruthless approach to running a business, and you are required to discuss the impact that this approach may have on the quality of service offered. So what is important is for you to ascertain whether customers are clear about the specification of the product and the service that they are offered. And if it's clear, and if Ryanair adheres and conforms to the specification of the product and service, then it is considered a quality product or quality service.